Thank you so much for joining me for this presentation on Fodmate, the most recent product launch by Microbiome Labs. And its tagline is "Your Food's Best Friend." And I believe that really comes from the idea that there's so many good foods out there that would be good for our microbiome, but we're not able to tolerate them. So this is an enzyme formula that is designed to help us tolerate specifically those FODMAP foods, um, and this is meant to be used for a temporary period while you're healing your gut. Okay, so let's see if we can get it to advance. Okay. All right, here we go. So the purpose of this is to cover all of the questions that you might have about FODMATE, its origin, what really are the FODMAP foods, how does the FODMATE help, what are its ingredients, who is the FODMATE designed to help, what are the dosing and the intended uses, and of the pricing. So the first question is, are you observing individuals that you're working with or yourself where you have particular foods that are causing you abdominal pain, gas, bloating, and constipation? And how often do you prescribe a low FODMAP diet? Now, I started hearing about FODMAP, I guess, about 3 years ago, primarily through, I would say, the registered dietitian area field. And I don't know if it's being taught in the clinical nutrition NTP world, but that's kind of where I started hearing about it first. I think in some cases there was just an observation that, you know, when you're doing food sensitivity testing, it seems to always be certain culprits, and perhaps that's how they started with their list, or that they actually did the fiber breakdown of these foods and saw that there was certain oligosaccharides in common with these foods. So as far as origins, really came from the observation that there's 25% of the population that reports to have these weekly abdominal pain and bloating issues. 10 to 15% of the population has been diagnosed with irritable bowel syndrome. And a third of these IBS patients test positive for SIBO. The treatment plan often includes antibiotics and a low FODMAP diet. Well, as functional medicine practitioners, we would love to avoid anything to do with antibiotics. And if you have actually seen a list of FODMAP foods, you'll see that it is not an easy diet to be compliant with. So the word FODMAP is actually an acronym, and it stands for fermentable oligosaccharides, disaccharides, monosaccharides, and polyols. And a low FODMAP diet is a very restrictive diet, like I mentioned, and it's difficult to follow. It's a temporary solution. So without following a FODMAP with a total gut restoration, generally you're just going to revert back to the issues that you had before. These fermentable fibers are needed by commensal bacteria in your gut for fuel. So there really comes the rub, that your body's not allowing you to break down the foods that your good gut bacteria need to keep your gut healthy. The byproducts of fiber fermentation are beneficial to our health, and that's because those bacteria need those fibers. Now, one of the practitioners that we've worked with on this formula, Brianna Eckmeyer, she's a naturopath, an ND, and she was looking for a tool to help her patients with the gas and bloating. So we partnered and put this formula together to target the oligosaccharides, disaccharides, and monosaccharides. And patients experiencing improved symptom relief while consuming the FODMAP containing foods. So the whole idea is to use Fodmate while you're trying to work on these FODMAP foods, and not to have it as a long-term solution, because like with FODMAP, if you continually restrict your diet, you're going to begin to restrict the populations of bacteria and limit your diversity, and we do not want to do that. So it's an innovative enzyme formula, intelligently formulated to aid in the digestion of the FODMAP foods, supports digestive health, relief from constipation, cramping, bloating, gas, and abdominal pain, intended to support the low FODMAP diet and facilitate better patient compliance. So here are the ingredients. So you have lactase. Of course, this is the, if you don't have enough lactase, you're not going to be able to break down milk sugar. And really, it doesn't matter if it's from cow's milk or the other milk has, lactose in it that you would need lactase from. And this is a beta galactosidase. And so that's it, the first ingredient that listed. And then the second is that alpha galactosidase. And this is for breaking down really your bean fibers, very much like the way Beano would work. So it's a common ingredient of an over-the-counter digestive enzyme formula, and that's really the one they're referring to. I think it's amazing that just the difference in a certain carbon attachment makes the difference between your ability to break down milk sugar or bean fiber. So that's, I thought was kind of cool. All right, then we look at the endo and exo inulase. And this is, what we've been, trying to teach people. A lot of the prebiotics from other companies include inulin, which feeds a whole variety of bacteria, but even the pathogens or bad populations. And then if you have the added problem of you're not able to break it down, then you're going to have all this gas and bloating because of it as well. And then there's a glucose isomerase, and this is for breaking down fructose sugar. And I think this is amazing that we have probably created this whole population of individuals that are intolerant to fructose because of the overuse of high fructose corn syrup. It never ends, this vicious cycle of running from one sweetener to the next and causing more and more problems. And then the whole other issue here is that we convinced, millions of individuals out there with diabetes that fructose is totally safe for them, that it's not glucose, so they can consume as much as they want of it. It's going to bypass, their whole, glucose biochemistry. And it was a total lie, because it does influence, their diabetes, because just as it, mentions here, fructose converts to glucose. And then in those individuals where it doesn't convert well because they don't have enough of this glucose isomerase, then they're going to get gas and bloating every time they consume fructose or high fructose corn syrup. So, so you do, if you've got someone on a very strict glucose monitoring, and then all of a sudden now you're converting more of their fructose to glucose, you're going to have to monitor that. I know there's some people saying, don't include don't include individuals with diabetes on this program, but I think you just need to pay attention to it, know what you're doing, because out of all the people, they probably need this more than anyone. And then the pectinase, as I said before, with the whole FODMAP, the P in the FODMAP stands for polyols. And polyols are sugar alcohols. And so our P does not stand for the sugar alcohols, it's for pectinase, which is also a problem. But my story on the polyols and sugar alcohols, I think most people recognize that there is a high intolerance in the xylitols And there's a whole list of other sugar alcohols that became very popular again because people are running from one sugar substitute to another. And in the functional world, we were telling people stay away from sucralose and NutraSweet and all the little colored packets, um, and then trying to turn people on to these sugar alcohols, and then finding out that there's a high intolerance. I was very disappointed, at Whole Foods when I discovered Lily's dark chocolate. It was during the time, when Ken was going through the whole cancer thing. Of course, we were not wanting to feed the cancer and looking to really reduce his sugar intake. And I thought this is going to be great, and I will just join him in this dark chocolate. And I think after a half a bar, I couldn't tolerate it. I mean, so um, yes, I think it's a problem, but I think most people know when they have a sensitivity to it, and they just avoid it. Um, and now the pectinase is sad because pectin is, of course, in fruits. And those of us who love our fruits or will sweeten things with fruits, this is a big disappointment. So this FODMAPE does have pectinase in it, which will help consuming the fruits. Okay, so here's a little note about the polylols, that yes, FODMAPE does not include it. Symptoms associated with consuming FODMAP tends to be cumulative. I would agree with that. Just like consuming that Lily's dark chocolate, first couple bites were wonderful. And then the next day when you take another square, it's not quite as wonderful. And then the next day it's a problem. So there is an accumulative effect there. Polylols typically not consumed in great amounts, not as much of an issue as other fermentable fibers. And I agree with that. I think they're not consumed as much because they're self-limiting. You, you can't consume anymore. Okay, now this is a note about the technology that's included with FODMAPE. They are in delayed release capsules. And that's so that they can get past the gastric barrier and not get digested in the stomach. And so this is showing, they have some real good technology for showing that, in fact, it stays intact in the stomach, passes, through the sphincter, and then it doesn't dissolve until it's in the intestinal tract. So that's what we want. Okay. Any patient. Okay, so who is this for? Of course, all those that are struggling with flatulence, bloating symptoms, and SIBO. And this is, again, probably all on the same spectrum, that once you start, destroying the pH barriers because of digestive issues, then these organisms, don't know where to live. That's their zip code. So they start translocating up the digestive tract where they should not be. Who has been recommended to follow a FODMAP diet. So, I looked at the list because I wanted to experience, I always try things just like all other practitioners. I want to, try all the new products and, new diets. And so when I looked at the list of what I had to give up, I immediately went to a list of, well, what can I include? And just saw that it was going to be very restrictive and difficult. So it was easier for me just to fast and just give up all the foods. And so my plan now is to introduce those foods that I know I've always struggled with and try them one at a time with FODMAPE. And that's how I'm going to test it. So my test that I'm working on today is black cherries. So I will report back next week to see how this experiment goes, because usually just one, serving of black cherries will, blow me up. So we'll see. Who is frustrated with a low FODMAP diet restriction? Yes, and I would say, I think everybody would be frustrated with it. So here's the dosing. It's 2 caps. Take with the first few bites of meals containing FODMAP foods. not intended for long-term use. And again, 3 months is generally how long you put someone on a low FODMAP diet. So that's how long you would have someone using Fodmate. And the reason is because, um, you know, when we're breaking these foods, these fibers down for, the feeding of certain bacteria, this is not a long-term solution. And if the FODMAP is eliminating certain foods, and that's going to reduce your diversity in your gut from the different organisms. Now, here's the note here. Megapre is loaded with prebiotics of oligosaccharides. So it would be counterintuitive to include these down and have to use FODMate to break them down. So it's better just to put that to the side until you've conquered the whole oligosaccharide digesting issue and you've brought in the right bacteria. Then you can introduce the Megapre to help those bacteria thrive better, because it's going to be different populations that can break these oligosaccharides down. We'll be introducing good biome foods down the road. These are also loaded with oligosaccharides, so those also would be, hold those off until we've solved the digestion issue for these fermentable prebiotic bacteria. This is just showing you where the resources are for all these new products that are going to start popping up. We have a client education Google Doc folder. And if you look into the total gut restoration under research and learning, you'll see all of the products listed. They'll have marketing brochures with each one, explaining their function. And those are one-page educational tools that you can forward to any of your clients that help them just reinforce what you're trying to teach them. And then this is the pricing. So I was relieved to see that this is priced at $36. So that means it's going to be part of the mix and match scheme. So it's real easy to get, your 12 bottles. So immediately you're, going to get, and this is 12 bottles of all the other $36, Megapre, Megaspore, Megamucosa, IgG 2000, all of those, and get up to that 15% discount. So it starts dropping the prices dramatically. So this is the 5% discount, and this is the 15% discount. And the MSRP, just like Megaspore, is $55. And of course, you can order it through your wholesale account. That's always the best way to get the best prices. You can drop ship it to patients, and of course, you can make it's available on the direct to patient. Okay, so that's the end of the FODMate presentation. I'm going to just mention 2 other slides, but then we'll go back. So whatever questions you're thinking about, hang on to them for 1 sec. I'm just showing this is kind of the logo. You'll recognize this. It's going to be the next product that's launched at the end of this month, Zen Biome. And these are particular organisms that are shown to help with relaxation and sleep. So that's kind of cool. I think right now we're, the whole world is stressed. We've got huge, mental health facilities that can't keep up with the depression, anxiety, and suicide attempts that's going on. So really whatever we can do to help people calm down, I think it's important to try. And then this I throw out there because it's a very requested slide, because in our microbiome, our Biome FX, it kind of throws all the pathogens together. And here it's separated out, and know that we've added 6 additional parasites, viruses, and fungi to this list. So there are some new ones, and I will get an updated slide. But if this slide helps, know that I have added it to the presentation, and I believe all of you do have access, to this presentation on Google Docs. And Cheryl, I know you, I sent it to you as an attachment, so I can do that again. Okay, so that concludes the FODMAP. So what questions do we have?
Tracy, I wanted to clarify I understood you correctly. If one is doing the TGR
Right.
protocol with the 90 days, you shouldn't be using FODMATE until they're done with that. Is that correct?
No, I think, you're still consuming whatever diet you're consuming. I think while your gut is going through the healing process, you may still find that there's some foods that are causing you issues. And I would use the FODMATE while you're consuming that food, and it should help tremendously, especially if that food is on the FODMAP list, which we'll get back to that little pair that kind of listed here. So if you start noticing a pattern, then, I think you can kind of deduce that, okay, it's consistent. Every time I have broccoli or every time I have cabbage, I'm bloating. I'm not tolerating it well. I know cabbage is really good for me. So let's try this. And all of a sudden, if now cabbage is not a problem, I think you've, discovered something. And I think that will help your process of trying to get those populations of organisms that would have been inhibited because you weren't able to break cabbage down.
Okay, but you said not to use it when you're using the mucosa.
Yes.
Was it the mucosa? One of the products.
The mega
prebiotic. You said not to use it.
Correct. And what they're doing to get around that is if you're using the mega pre, don't use it at the same time that you're taking the FODMATE. So if you're, depending on how you're mixing it in, if you're drinking it when you eat, then don't use the FODMATE at the same time. If you're doing it between meals, then just use the FODMATE to help with the particular foods that you want to incorporate into your diet.
At the time that you're eating. So you're saying separate the time from when you took the prebiotic and when you take the FODMATE.
Yes, because you don't want to distract the FODMATE to all these other oligosaccharides that really aren't causing you a problem. You want it to focus on that particular food where a particular oligosaccharide is an issue for you.
Okay, thank you.
I have received a report back on an individual who has had a long-term SIBO issue, and she said she was very excited that the FODMATE is helping her to consume broccoli again. And, as all of us who are consulting individuals on diet, we want to tell them to consume as much broccoli as possible. There's so many health benefits, anti-cancer benefits of broccoli. And then if you can't consume broccoli yourself, you really kind of feel like a hypocrite telling everybody else to consume it. So that was great news for her.
I have a quick question. What would be the problem, or would there be a problem of just a random person saying, oh, I have gas or bloating when I eat garlic. Oh, here, just take this FODMATE every time you have the extra bloating and just take it like that. So not on a regular basis, just when needed.
Yeah, and I think, then you're kind of using it like you would Beano. And um, then we're kind of the same as an allopathic prescription prescriber. If we really want to get, to the underlying problem, if there's probably other issues with foods in that same category, and if they could commit to more of a program, a committed time to look at specific foods, look, at a process of food elimination, reintroduction, use of the FODMAPE, and then a total gut healing, they should have a long lasting benefit, not kind of a hit and miss. I hope this, solves it, um, because if you're using a crutch long term, it may never really solve the problem. It's just working temporarily.
Perfect. Thank you. That does answer my question.
Super.
I have a question.
Sure.
So I have a client who has just taken her MRT, and she does need to eliminate quite a few of these foods listed. Now I have her, she's extremely, and she seems like the perfect client for this FODMAPE product, because she's frustrated with the elimination. She has a very difficult time sticking to any kind of protocol. And so this seems like it would help her at least add back in those foods. However, I guess the only hesitation that I would have is I'm wondering if those particular foods are setting off inflammation in her body because of some other mechanism than just the FODMAP.
Yeah, and I would look at these,
whichever fermentable oligosaccharides are.
right. And I would be critical about what foods I would, for instance, wouldn't show them this list and say, okay, so you can eat ice cream, go ahead and take this FODMAPE. I mean, ice cream is not an option. Ice cream should be a prescription drug. It is my addiction, and I cannot even buy it. So, there's some things that cannot really be on the list. And if, there's things that are on the dirty dozen, as it's really hard to get organic sources, but they're going to be really high in herbicides, I wouldn't let them on the list.
Yeah.
So I would be selective. I'd look at like barbecue sauce. I'm sure there's other things in there. And if it's not specific, they're probably going out there and getting the barbecue sauce with, MSG in there and corn syrup and, a dozen other things that we shouldn't have anyway. But
sugar.
Yeah, sugar, salt, sodium, high sodium. It's not even the right kind of salt. So I would look at it and say, oh my gosh, asparagus is so healthy and broccoli so healthy. Brussels sprouts are so great. I'd look at those, and if they love those foods, that's where I think FODMAPE is going to really help out. It's like, yes, we want to consume those foods. Let's get those fibers in your diet. And here's something to help.
Yes, perfect. Yeah, that's
The other thought that occurred to me, Tracy, is that when we pair foods that are healthy, like asparagus and broccoli and whatever, with garbage, such as barbecue sauce, ranch dressing, that kind of stuff, then, even if we didn't have an allergy or a sensitivity to the original food that God created, because it's coated liberally with this garbage which usually has way too much sugar and salt and all the other things you were talking about, then, and something else that I've started thinking about is a lot of different, you know, me being in the military, I got injected with everything, and I have allergies to all of those things now. All the adjuvants, all the binders, MSG, eggs, the whole deal, I developed allergies to. So something going forward that we're going to have to watch is people developing allergies to PEG, polyethylene glycol. It's in a lot of foods.
Right.
It's in a lot of body care products. So just something to, anyways.
Chris, you cut out there. I didn't hear anything after anyways.
When I get over being sick, because I want the vitamin C. What?
Oh, from anyways to vitamin C was
Say again?
quiet.
Oh, I'll crave broccoli when I'm getting over being sick,
Oh,
because I want the vitamin C and it's broccoli and lemon butter. It's a strange combination I've had since I was little. Anyway, and but I crave it, and it's not, there's nothing unhealthy on it, but it's like I'll crave seaweed paper, which
Mhm.
you know, it's got iodine and other key elements that we need, or that kind of thing. So those kind of cravings kind of go in the other space that you're talking about, but then the funky cravings, usually that revolve around sugar, MSG, which is designed to create a craving, or salt or whatever. You know, if it's salt, well, the adrenals could be low. I mean, there's so many different moving parts. I just don't think that we were designed to not eat broccoli.
You're right.
So
right.
I would, if it was my client, I would actually tell them, I want you eating garlic, so take this so that you can eat it, because I feel like, you know, or take enzymes to help you digest it, because I feel like the benefits outweigh the issue, and then work on removing some of the other stuff. But the big thing with my people has been they have got to have some sort of replacement. Otherwise, they just go crazy and they don't comply, like not even close.
Right.
So we usually work on replacements first. And yeah.
Yes, focusing on what they can have
That's it.
helps them mentally than what they can't have. I learned that the hard way. And Anne had brought up a good point earlier about, you know, when we're looking at people, especially young kids that cannot, you know, they won't eat certain things, they get stomach aches, they get headaches, they throw up. You know, we need to critically look at these foods and see, is it a behavior thing? They're just rebelling? Is it a food intolerance? Is it a good food that maybe they have enzyme deficiencies or microbiome issues? But keep in mind, there's good cravings and bad cravings, like Chris was saying. If you eat bad food, you crave more bad food. So there has to be a time of washout, time that you can stay away from fast foods, the sugar, the salt, the fat content, so that your taste buds will change, and then see, you know, really what you're dealing with. So there's a lot of moving parts here. I think we have to go at this scientifically and you know, try to make lists of foods that shouldn't be a problem, that they should have, and that they just need a little help with, and then try to get them away from some of these foods they shouldn't be eating anyway. Okay, it's awful quiet. Did we lose audio?
Yeah, you cut
little
out
bit.
a bit.
I do
Shoot.
have another question. When people are taking the prebiotic and they start flaring up again, do you think that's one of the reasons why?
Yes, I think that there's some stubborn populations of bacteria, the fermenters in there, that we didn't knock down enough, and the prebiotic is feeding them.
Interesting. Thank you.
Or the sugar that they're eating is feeding them.
So Tracy, how would you address that then if, because I was looking at that, I can't ever remember the name of it, the prebiotic. It's based off of corn and wheat and no, wait a minute. Corn and milk, which are two of the things that are a problem for a lot of people.
Yeah, but there's no food particles in there. So this has nothing to do with the food proteins that cause sensitivities. This is a highly refined oligosaccharide, and it's the oligosaccharide that is the preferred food for bacteria. And we marketed this as a precision prebiotic. So we know the organisms that it helps grow, but there's got to be some of those keystone strains that when they are in a higher number are also fermenters and are causing an issue. So having too many or too few of those keystone strains can be a problem as well. So it's a matter of getting all of these populations in the right balance so that we get the best environment for the optimal the optimal community that works together.
Okay.
So, I think it's like with the microbiome is extremely complicated. We had hoped that going in with a 1, 2, 3 total gut, this is going to clear up everything. I wish that's all it would take. Now we're seeing there's other layers. We're running into a whole species of, fermenting organisms that have taken on kind of a life of their own. And it's those folks that they did the total gut restoration, they got 50% better, but they still have, some kind of issue. So as we're evolving, we're going to see how complex this microbiome is and different tools that we're going to have to go at it and help those percentage of individuals that have lingering issues.
Tracy, it never ceases to amaze me how healthcare or medical professionals seem to think that a singularly targeted product or prescription or whatever can fix something as complex and intricately designed as, any of the ailments that we have that are attacking the body and how intricately designed it is. That's why, like you hear about for, say, CBD oil is a good example. It's best when it's full spectrum, because when it's singularly, when it's just one, one part of the plant or one part of the I'm trying to figure out the word and I can't remember it right now. But anyway, then it's been shown, some of them, to cause cancer or to be ineffective or basically a waste of your money or whatever. And whereas the full spectrum can do phenomenal things, supposedly, but it's kind of that way with a lot of other stuff. Like for antiviral, antibiotic, and antifungal, I use totally different things now. And neither myself nor my husband has had to take, or any of my clients who get on board with it, have had to take antibiotics for years. And so anyway, I think the more diverse and the more close to nature that these different things are, the better it helps us. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, that's it's a great point. Just like we've learned, vitamin E's, they have to be, there's a family of them. Taking too much vitamin D imbalances other things.
Exactly.
I'm going through this whole thing with my thyroid, in that I've been on some form of natural thyroid for 30 years. and they're trying to take it off the market. You know, one by one, they're eliminating, you know, the full spectrum T1, T2, T3, T4 that's in a desiccated
Is that why
thyroid.
they keep having recalls on them?
Yes, yes. And so my thyroid is up and down because
Oh
I'm
my
switching
God.
from one to the next as they're eliminating them from the market. And in the end, they're going to do what they always do. Well, all you really need is Synthroid. You know, we know more than the body knows. So, and I know what happens when I'm just on Synthroid, you know. So this is in, you know, just an example kind of across the full board. I've had biochemists get in my face and tell me there is no difference between a synthetic vitamin and a natural vitamin. They truly believe this. Maybe it's when I talk too fast
Hey,
that it
Tracy,
cuts out.
I have to go to my other call.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we can wrap
No,
up.
we heard you. I
Okay.
just got a message, though, that I need to call my husband because one of our good friends got broadsided. So if y'all would say prayers, and I got to go.
Okay,
I need to
Chris.
call him.
Will do. Okay. Thanks for joining me, everyone. And hope you're all doing well. And we will, yes, we need to think of each other through the week. I think we're all going through different things. So reach out if there's anything I can do to help, and stay safe. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you
You're
so
welcome.
much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.